Now, usually the 3-episode rule is saved for shows that you haven't watched before, and I have watched the first season of this show before, and I kind of no, I'm probably really going to enjoy the second season. However, I didn't have a video lined up, so let's see if Apothecary Diaries Season 2 passes my 3-episode rule. So I've seen the first season of this show, as I said before, and low-key, it's a 9 out of 10. The first season absolutely bangs. I really, really like it. Let me put it in layman's terms. Have you ever watched House or the BBC TV show Sherlock? Shows that have characters that have unbelievable knowledge pertaining to whatever the hell the writers or story need them to have in that instance. That way, it's really easy for the writers to essentially write themselves out of any holes and be as uncreative as possible. Well, if I have one critique of this show, it's that it has a very similar format, except because this is a unique setting. Spur-of-the-moment realizations don't come as often as they do in those other shows. They often are built up and pre-established and genuinely feel well-deserved when they come to it. While in these other shows, the subject that they're talking about is so complicated that the average Joe can't really fully grasp what is exactly going on. It feels like a one-sided conversation in which you don't have agency with it. However, because the setting is so unique and traditional in this story, I actually find myself coming to the same conclusion as the main character at times. Not all the time, because if it was really predictable, then there's no surprise. It's a really good median between the two types of storytelling. It doesn't speed foon you anything, and some shenanigans do get pulled out of the hat. But for the majority of the time, things are pre-established or at the very, very least hinted at. This is a massive improvement than it being lupus every single time. Lupus is lupus. Not to mention that the main character actually has a relatable character. Because to be honest, a guy hooked on go-go juice because of his bad leg, or a guy who's sipping tea in his mind palace, aren't exactly the most relatable characters. This is just someone set in an ancient setting who is somewhat educated. That's it. It's simplistic, it's refreshing, but that is only the first season. So let's see how season 2 does with the 3-episode rule. Episode 1. First thing I want to say right off the bat is that compared to the Seven Prince, oh my god, the CG in this is so goddamn tasteful. I did the video on the Seven Prince, and the CG for the opening of that was just abysmal. One thing I usually critique in anime like this is fan service, and it's something that I've personally allowed myself to overlook within this series. The character designs actually make sense as to why the characters have assets like that, because they literally, well, how do I put this so YouTube doesn't? They are women of the dark hour. They exist to do the snoo with the Emperor, so, of course they look like that. The first we see of Xiao Mao, she's inside the alchemist shack, making some perfume from the flowers that are from last season. And the reason she's doing that here, some scented oils, particularly rose scented oil, have known to cause miscarriages and to just make pregnant women in general sick. Foreshadowing! She's also brewing up some alcohol, very high-grade alcohol, for the purposes of cleaning, a method she has said they use in the West. She receives her packages while the eunuchs are visiting, and she's desperately trying to hide what's within, mainly because it's adult novels for the concubines. See, a lot of the concubines, they're going to be virgins, because that's their whole stick. They got to be with the Emperor and no one else. So they're very inexperienced, and they're expected to not be. So, they need to be educated. Although the eunuchs have quite an interest in the novels, they do say that they have to be censored, so they take them away. Womp, womp. During this interaction, they also talk about the current science of printing these novels, and talk about how they're using metal slabs instead of the usual. I can't remember what the other one was, but it's pretty cool. They talk about sciencey stuff. While on an outing with the new princess, she comes across a cat that the princess has taken a particular liking to. Xiao Mao fails to capture the cat, but is assisted by a mysterious woman who is very happy to help, but once the cat is captured, leaves in a hurry. Xiao Mao then takes care of the cat, nursing it back to full health, as it wasn't looking too good. Not a lot of meat on them bones. Xiaomao feeds the cat goat milk through some intestines because apparently that's going to feel like the mother's teat, so the cat will actually drink the milk. And later that same night, the emperor comes for a visit, approving of the cat and requesting that Xiaomao takes care of it in future. And the emperor names the cat Admonisher of Thieves, because it's, you know, the cat's there to kill the mice and they steal the grain. By the way, have you ever seen like a cat play with a mouse? Because that's what they do. They play. They don't hunt them. Once they catch the mouse, they just toy with it. It's sadistic, but at the same time, it's cute. Overall, as a first episode, it's cheerful and it's fun, but there is a lot of loose ends that are obviously, or at least hopefully, going to be tied up in the next few episodes, or at least by the end of the season. The fact she's mentioning that the perfume can cause issues with pregnant women, I would like to think is foreshadowing, because it's very particular to mention that while there is women who are around and women who are around who are also pregnant. Also, the best episode in the series so far, because, you know, it's got a cat, it's got a kit, it's got a kit, it's got a cat. Episode 2. We know that a new concubine is showing up to the palace, along with a caravan that is selling all sorts of clothes, herbs, teas, and whatever women think is pretty and like. After a fun day at the caravan, and meeting up with the woman who helped her save the cat, she starts to come up with a particularly scary theory. She notices that a lot of the things at the caravans can have adverse effects on women who are pregnant. Boom. The foreshadowing comes full circle, but that's not the worst thing, okay? Because she can just stop that by telling everyone that, hey, if you're pregnant, no. The issue is that this might be part of an overarching plan to hurt particular concubines at this moment in time. Maybe someone's competition. Also, in the case of Xiaomao's personal concubine she works for, the clothes were not exactly selected to her genuine needs. The clothes are for women who are not pregnant. So when she grows through the pregnancy, her clothes are no longer going to fit her. She needs to pick up a few bits and bobs that will allow for that growth and for her to live comfortably and dignified. As I said, Xiaomao runs into the girl from before who helped her with the cat, and her name is Shishui. Her name is It turns out the two women have a lot in common, with a particular fascination about mushrooms, and one of the areas that is run down and gone a bit wild within the district. While helping with all the washing, Xiaomao finds out that the scents on the clothes that the concubine are all wearing are filled with the scents that can harm the pregnancies. This almost fully cements her theory, and she reports this to the authorities within the area. This is when it goes from a mystery to an investigation. By the way, the way she gathers this information is, well, it's pretty fucking funny. She goes around and she starts sniffing all the concubines, which, by the way, are like kind of low-key royalty. And she's just going around sniffing everyone. She's just grabbing their clothes and giving them a sniff while they're still wearing them. She gets a few complaints, so that's an issue for her. But of course, when she reports as to why she was doing it, there's no issue. So she only looks like a creep. But at the very end of the episode, we find out that a middle-rank concubine called Jean has just passed away, granting Xiaomao's theory a foundation to spring off. I'd like to say I'm leaving a good bit of fluff out, right? It's only the second episode of the second season, so they're still giving us some room to breathe. They're introducing new characters and having plenty of the normal fun moments that I don't realistically want to get too far into in this video, because realistically I want you to watch the goddamn show and enjoy those moments for yourself. If I'm talking about the main plot of the first 3 episodes, I want there to at least be something there for you to watch and enjoy without spoilers. But overall, this episode builds on episode 1 and, builds upon the foreshadowing that I called earlier. I might say in a very organic way and understandably and realistic way. My only complaint is that I don't get to see much of my boy. Episode 3 begins with Jinxi assigning Mao the task of investigating the possibility of poisonous mushrooms within the rear palace. Currently, the palace is filled with news of the sudden death of Lady Jean, the mid-rank concubine from before. She's particularly known for her jealousy and her difficult demeanor. The official reports suggest that she succumbed to food poisoning, but the circumstances arouse a lot of, suspicion because of the current theory floating around. As Mau Mau dives deeper, she uncovers that the Lady Jin had actually died a year prior to conceal this. Her maid, who bore a striking resemblance to her, was convinced into impersonating Lady Jin, and this ruse was maintained by saying that Lady Jin was ill the entire time, because she would have head wraps to cover the scarring of her face, hiding her identity. The investigation leads Mau Mau to the northern forest, where she notices a stench mentioned earlier in episode 2. And an abundance of mushrooms. She deduces that the mushrooms thrive on decomposing matter, prompting her to suspect a corpse was hidden nearby. With assistance from the eunuch, she uncovers a buried body with the real Lady Jin, confirming her suspicions. In conclusion, her keen observation and knowledge of toxicology, big word for me, helps her unravel the truth, the duo of deaths. Well, it helps highlight just how dangerous the palace can be with all the rivalries and stuff. The main themes of like this storyline, I suppose, is, you know, deception, jealousy, and just like basically Mean Girls. The movie is just the vibe from within this palace. Look, needless to say, I have enjoyed these 3 episodes, okay? It 100% passes the 3 episode rule. There is no question of that. Any anime that's able to, within 3 episodes, put good foreshadowing and a good narrative pipeline is always going to be way better off in my books. Like the setup, the event, and the conclusion are all like pre-contained in their own episodes with foreshadowing and intrigue connecting them all together. And they had enough fluff within them to help you kind of forget and maybe move on from what you think is going on. Like the fluff is really good at kind of like disengaging you or making you lower your guard. So when the serious narrative picks back up, you're always just taken a little aback. See, a lot of the time in like mystery shows in particular, you notice that there is fluff between the main narratives and stuff, but it's really, really unorganically introduced, and sometimes it's forced into the main weave of the narrative in a way that is really unorganic. But every single time here, something normal happens that can pertain to her remembering something or noticing something she didn't before. This helps the narrative flow like goddamn butter, and it really helps that the animation and art style also are smooth, clean, and beautiful. Don't get me wrong, there's parts where it's very simplistic in terms of its animation, but that's strategic. The reason why shots like this can look so good and shots like this are a single image with voiceover is because they're budgeting the episode. Have you ever watched a shonen where you get 9 episodes of flashback and slop just so you can have the Naruto and Sasuke fight? Like, this is a much healthier way to do it. So far, Apothecary Diaries Season 2 is good. It's very good. But Season 1 is deadly. Watch all of this. Watch all of it. And if you liked the video, please, for the love of God, subscribe. I'm trying to get monetized and I need watch hours because I did one video almost a year ago that is carrying the monetization bar, and if I don't get there within 2 months, I have to basically start from scratch. So would really appreciate a like, subscribe, and possibly a comment if you would be so bold. Also in my profile, I added my anime list. Check that out. I'd really appreciate you guys taking a look at my takes and seeing if you think they're, you know, crap or not. And, you know, I can tell you that you're just wrong and my take is right. It's always good to argue with people. It helps widen your perspective, even if you don't necessarily agree with what the person is saying. Of course, you know, if the person who you're speaking to says solo leveling is peak, oh, then there's no point in arguing with them because they're monkeys.